For the last 4 weeks or so, I've been experimenting with a pretty simple but surprisingly game-changing little piece of plastic, which is the XTP extended length butt cap. It adds just over a ½ inch of length to your racket, in this case making my Technifiber T-Fight from about 27 and a bit inches to just over 27.5 inches, which doesn't necessarily seem much, but it has made actually quite a significant difference on court. And it is something now that I have firmly changed to. So what I'll cover today is what it does, how you fit it and what the implications of that are, what it does to the specs of your racket, how it plays, and maybe why you should, but also should not consider doing this. What are we actually talking about? So the XTP extended length butt cap, it literally looks like a piece of molded plastic, which essentially inside it's got sort of this little platform, I guess, which means that when you put it on your racket, it creates sort of about a ½ inch extension to the racket. To install it, the basics are really you take your grips off, you strip your racket back down to the pallet, you peel off the staples from the old butt cap, take it off, and you slide this one over the top, and you can either glue it, but probably better is to staple it back on. In principle, that's all you need to do. It costs in the UK here, you can buy them for £15, and essentially they come in different sizes. This is an L4, so you can buy the right size XTP extended length butt cap to match your racket, and it should just slip on. There is a consideration there, which I'll talk about later in the video. But the key question really is, why would you even do this? And really, the key thing is that by making your racket longer, you get better reach, you get a longer lever, essentially. You will increase the swing weight of your racket, which potentially, if you can swing the racket faster, you should get more power as well as more reach. Now, in terms of the technical effects, but also to take from the professional game in terms of who does this. So the big thing to consider is, of course, it will add a ½ inch to your racket, and that's all at the handle, basically makes the handle longer. The second thing is it absolutely increases the swing weight, and there's some sort of stat around for every ½ inch you increase the length of your racket, you will add 20 points or 20 grams to the swing weight. In terms of my racket, it went from being about 323 kilograms centimeter squared, or 320, to around about 340. So it's actually a pretty significant change in swing weight, even though the weight of the racket didn't change at all. Now, what that will do is it creates a bit more, I think they call it rotational inertia, where while you get extra reach and potentially extra power, it kind of resists a bit more the rotation of the racket, and it can affect your ability to quickly change and maneuver the racket. But it also will affect your timing a little bit. So now, in terms of the professional game, players that are reported to have done this, Novak Djokovic, Andy Murray, but also on the women's side, players like Maria Sharapova and Serena Williams are reported to have played with extended rackets. Under ITF rules, normal tennis rackets are around 27 inches. You can go up to 29 inches in length. I don't know any players who have done that. Maybe there are some. So for me, I mean, the real question comes back to, again, still, why would you do this and what's the actual feel when you get it on court? Now, I remember when I first did this, the two things I really noticed were, one, on serve, I just found that my serve suddenly worked a whole lot more, which I think was two real points. One is, there's a little bit mental. By thinking that the racket is longer, it made me think to actually reach up to the ball more, which I think is partly a mental thing. The second thing is, though, that I think I was always striking the ball a little bit high on the racket, whereas now, both by reaching up and having extended, it feels like I'm actually striking the racket more in the sweet spot, and I get a much cleaner hit. Serves have just become a lot more consistent. The second is on ground strokes, where, I mean, if you really think about it, we're talking about a ½ inch. It's not like suddenly I'm going to be able to reach a ball that's a meter away. That's not what we're talking about in terms of reach. It does feel like you can definitely tell the racket's longer, but again, to do with the sweet spot, I feel like I'm actually striking the ball a lot better in the sweet spot because of this. So you could argue and say, well, couldn't you just use a shorter racket and, reach out a bit more? Well, do you know what? This has really worked for me, and I just haven't felt like going back. On the serve as well, I always used to hang the pinky off of the racket in order to get a bit more that reach and the whip, but then I lost stability. Whereas now I can actually grip the racket fully. It means that I've got that reach, but I've also got stability on the serve. So I feel like a heavier ball. And people have commented that my serve, regardless of speed, it's a heavy serve that comes at them. In terms of the feel and swing, the racket definitely does feel heavier, but I think the T-Fight, the balance point is relatively low. It's always been quite a whippy racket. So for me, I don't feel that that has impacted my ability to whip the racket through. In fact, arguably, it may have actually made it even easier, albeit, yeah, I'm not sure that everybody would appreciate that extra swing weight. So in terms of fitting this, one thing you've got to be really conscious of, that if you buy the butt cap that is the same size as your grip, it's going to slip in over the top. And what that means is they're not actually the thinnest things. They're probably about 1mm plastic walls, which means you suddenly feel this really distinct edge as your hand sort of grips the butt cap but then grips the handle. Now, there are some ways to do this where you could say then you could build up the rest of the handle to it, but then you're making your grip bigger, which presumably the racket you're using, the grip's already the right size. So what I actually ended up doing, once I tested it with the butt cap that I could just slide on, I then actually bought the butt cap that was a size smaller. I use a grip size 4, so I bought the L3 size of the extended butt cap. I then went and I filed down. So I got a metal file and I got a sander and I basically filed down so I could slip it on, and it went relatively flush. They do say that you can glue these on. I don't think you would ever do that. It's gonna come off even if you use sort of a flexible cement. So I just took the staples out, marked out the original holes where the original butt cap was, pierced 2 holes in the extended butt cap, and then I put the staples back in. That's how they do it at the factory, and that feels really, really secure. This doesn't make it completely flush, but it does work well. Just a caveat though, if you do file your grip down, then that's a permanent change to the racket really. So, you wanna make sure you really wanna do this. I think as well, there are some professional services that can do this for you. All in all, I would say this isn't for everybody. For me, I did it predominantly because when I did serve, I found that I did hang the pinky off, which was about a 1/2 inch gap. And sometimes I would find that on ground strokes, I'd really be holding the racket quite low. So to be honest, for me, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I was holding the racket very low to start with, but then that impacts stability. So for me, this makes perfect sense. I don't mind as well. For me, always used heavier rackets. So to be honest, the additional swing weight, particularly with a whippy racket like the Technifiber T-Fight, is not a big issue. And you know what? I don't mind modifying my rackets as well. But I would say if you don't particularly benefit from reach, if you find that you really do need a whippy, lower swing weight racket, then do you know what? I don't know this is really going to be the change for you. However, if you do like control, stability, and you do want some more reach from your racket, then this might be something you want to consider trying. Bear in mind, you can buy some rackets already in an extended length, but the manufacturers that do them don't do it for all the rackets. Some manufacturers don't do it for any rackets whatsoever. So as ever, it'd be great to get your thoughts on this. Do you use an extended length racket? Have you tried the XTP extended length butt cap? And did you like it? Did it work? Or did you end up saying, no, that's not quite for me? Love to get your thoughts.